Sales is the most lucrative skill in the world, period. The problem is most sales advice out there today is outdated, cheesy, and can even keep you from getting the deals that can make all the difference in your career. This is the No BS Sales School, a podcast for entrepreneurs and salespeople who want to master the skill of selling without all the BS. Listen, if you're like me, you hate doing admin crap. Number one, because you're not good at it. And number two, because you know it's taking you away from the stuff that actually makes you money. So why are you doing it? Do what I did. Go to worksby.com right now and let them pair you with a real executive assistant. Once I started working with Cheryl at Worksby, my income went up 40% in 1 month, and my working hours went from 70 down to 40. It's a game changer. Go to worksby.com right now, book a call, and tell them Walker sent you. If you do, you'll get 2 extra hours of service for free as a bonus. So if you're ready to finally stop doing the stuff you hate and focus on the stuff that makes you money, go to worksby.com right now. That's WORXBEE.com. Tell them Walker sent you, and you'll get those 2 free hours. Welcome to the No BS Sales School podcast. This is Walker. And today I want to talk to you about why no is my second favorite word in sales, and it should be yours too. And by the way, convince is one of my least favorite words in sales. Sounds kind of strange, right? A lot of people, when I ask them to define what is sales, they say, well, it's convincing people to buy what you have. And I would say that's bullshit. If you're honest, it's bullshit. Because and today especially, I think it's harder to convince somebody of something than ever before. People are cynical. I'm not even sure you can convince people of things. And oftentimes when you're trying to convince somebody of something, you're doing that for your interest and not for theirs. So if we see selling as truly selfless, which I do, then I want us to think, let's just drop the whole convince thing. It's not about that, right? It's about, I would tell you instead, thinking about convincing people, I would say disqualifying people who aren't ready for you yet. Disqualifying those prospects that aren't ready for you yet. Why would somebody be not ready for you yet, even if you have the perfect product or service? Well, because number one, they may not want it. Number two, they may have somebody else who's doing it for them already that they like, or maybe they don't like, but they're not ready to switch, or they don't have any money. Right? Or they don't give a shit about what it is that you can help them fix. They don't care. How many people that you actually call on for the first time end up being customers of yours? Honestly, if your number is above, say, 40%, it means, number one, either you're not charging enough and or you're not in front of enough people to start with. So if you're like, oh, I close 100%, it just means you're not calling on enough people and or you're not charging enough money. So I want you to focus instead on the idea that your job in sales is to disqualify those people that aren't ready yet. So how do you do that, Walker? That sounds really neat, but how the hell do you do that? And well, I guess even before how, it's why. Why would you do that? Number one, to keep your integrity, because you're not right for everybody, as we've just covered. Also, if you look at this as qualifying your prospects, and there's some measure of hope and some measure of convincing you're still putting on yourself, look at it as disqualifying. Before I start, I hope, every sales call, it's probably more like 90% of sales calls, I begin with, I feel no pressure to sell you anything. Why would I do that? Because it's true. I feel no pressure to sell them anything. The more that you can adopt that, not just as words, but as your true mindset, the more fun you'll start having in sales. And I will tell you too, the more money you'll make in sales. Stop trying to convince people. Stop trying to pressure people. Don't feel pressure yourself, and don't give pressure to people. I think when you pressure people, when you push for a yes, when you won't accept anything less than yes, that's just annoying as shit. That ends up just being stalking. So, how about this? I think it's powerful before you start a sales call or at the beginning of your sales call. If you say to people, look, I feel no pressure to sell you anything, right, and mean it. And then you say, as a matter of fact, if I get the feeling that we're not going to be the right fit, that you should not buy this, do this, hire me, whatever. If I got that feeling first, do you mind if I'm just straight with you and tell you so? Get permission to tell them no. And then do the same. Hey, listen, same for you. If you're not sure you want to have what I have, buy what I sell, work with me, whatever, how about tell me no as well? So here's the thing. That scares the hell out of some salespeople. Why would I tell them that? Why would I tell them they can tell me no? Well, guess what? They know they can tell you no anyway. That's not a damn surprise. Here's the thing, too. If you don't give them permission to tell you no and let them know that's okay, you know what they do instead of telling you no? They say, let me think it over. Why don't you call me in a week? Let's get back together in a month. Or how about send me some more information on that? Put that in writing. Put that in a proposal. Right? By the way, those things are just long nose and a waste of your time, and they're an opportunity for you to be a pushy jerk. Don't do it. Ask for permission to tell them no if you don't think this is the right thing. Give them permission to tell you no if they're not sure they want to do this. Again, when I'm on my game, when I'm doing well, I tell people, if you're not thinking, hell yes, let's call this a no. Right? I want somebody to be excited, right? That they're committed, that they're in. If they're not certain, then let's just call this a no. Take all the pressure off. And so then, though, so we're given permission to tell us no. We're getting permission to say no. Then the harder thing is, what does yes mean? See, because as a salesperson who's optimistic, who walks in the door, you're thinking, well, I mean, if they like this, then they're going to buy it. But they may be thinking, if I like this, I'm going to get some information, or I'm going to bring my partner in the room, or I'm going to set another meeting, or I'm going to see if I can beat them up on price. Define what that means. Define what yes means. So get permission to tell them no. Give them permission to tell you no, and then say, or we could figure out this does make sense, right? And typically, at the end of a meeting like this, we're deciding whether or not to, whatever that is, sign a contract, hire us to do some sort of study, sign a PO, whatever that is, whatever the ideal outcome is, say, let's do this. Typically, at the end of a meeting like this, we're deciding whether or not we do this. And if at the end of this meeting, if you're not sure you want to do this, let's just call it a no. Is that okay with you? So this does a couple of things. Number one, it helps both of you focus on exactly what you need to know to decide yes or no. See, when there's no agenda for the meeting, which means a decision that's to be made at the end of the meeting, when there's not one of those, people don't even know what questions to ask. So they ask you all this dumb shit that maybe doesn't matter, or stuff that they shouldn't be worried about yet. But if you say, let's do this, let's decide whether or not we do this, then they know the questions. They can come up with the questions they need to know to decide that. And by the way, I'm not talking about everybody has to buy at the first meeting. Maybe you have a standard 2-call close, or it takes 3 meetings. By the way, it shouldn't take much longer than that. But what is something that they could decide in the first meeting, right? That they've got some skin in the game. And if they're not sure they're ready to take that step, let's call it a no now. So why is that a good thing? Well, shit, if they're not going to buy, when do you want to know? What could you do with your time? If something's going to end up being a no, would you rather know at the beginning of the first meeting, or would you rather know at the end of the 9th meeting, after you've made an ass of yourself and wasted all this time? I want to know at the beginning of the first meeting, if that's as soon as I can learn. Here's the thing, too. So when you get a no early, you can stop wasting time. I mean, you can go home. You can take a nap, because that time would have been wasted anyway. You can go take a nap, which is productive, or you can do what some of my ace sales people do, which is go prospect again. Go set more meetings. Have more free time, right? Stop convincing, start disqualifying. Stop convincing, start disqualifying. Here's the thing. If you're hearing stuff at the beginning of the meeting or in the middle of the meeting, we're like, well, I don't know, it seems kind of expensive, we kind of already have this, or whatever it is, hell, you call it no first. Right? If they're giving you any pushback at all, say, hey, listen, no big deal. Why don't we just go ahead and call this a no? Sounds to me like it's not the right time. What happens when you do that? Either they say, okay, you're right. But here's the thing. Once again, people are like, I can't do that. Then it'll just be over. Well, let's go back to my original point. I don't think you convince anybody of anything. Just because you called a no, guess what? People love to make salespeople wrong. All you're doing is saying no to any more bullshit, right? You want to get to the point. And as soon as you say, hey, let's call this thing a no, you get to the truth really quickly. And if the truth is they say, well, it's just not the right time, or my boss isn't around, or whatever the hell, listen, great, no big deal. I appreciate you telling me so. But a lot of the time, right, when you say, hey, let's just call this a no, they might say, no, let's keep talking. No, let's keep talking. At which point you can say, well, tell me why. Right? Somebody's got to be selling you for it to be the right thing, right? They've got to have a problem. Buyers love to make salespeople wrong. So if you call it no, hey, let's not do this, and they say, well, I don't know, it's too soon, let's find out more. See, then you get to be wrong, they get to be right, and you win anyway. What I would tell you, your most bestest sales calls will begin after you've told somebody no. You're not going to convince them. They've already had this idea in their mind if they weren't going to buy. You'll just end the meeting sooner, and that's completely okay. You cannot convince people, right? So here's what I challenge you. In your next couple of sales calls, find a reason during the conversation to call it a no, sooner rather than later. See if you can call it a no in the first 15 minutes. This is when the magic happens. When you prove to somebody that you're not begging for the business, that you're not beholden to them, that you're willing to walk away. It's best, right, when that's not a game. I would tell you, be as sincere and genuine as possible. This is not some bullshit tactic. I want you to have this as a belief. I'm not the right fit for everybody. I don't want to waste their time. As soon as I hear this is not going to be a fit, I'm getting out of there. And that's completely okay. By the way, guess how much easier it is to get back in the door with somebody if last time you very gently said, look, I don't think this is the right time. I don't think this makes sense. Because you didn't try and convince them. You weren't whiny, bitchy, begging to get in the door, right? They'll talk to you again because you're telling the truth. No BS sales team, I wish you the best of luck this week. Go knock them dead. Forward this podcast to somebody that needs to hear it. If you have not yet, please subscribe to this podcast. Give me 5 stars. Right? Go ahead and give me 5 stars. It increases our ratings. By the way, we're in the top 2% of sales podcasts in the country, thanks to you and what you guys are doing, and thanks for sharing the word. No BS sales team, I appreciate you. Go get them. Talk soon.